Hello, today we're going to discuss Mishnah concept number 4, which is that sometimes our Chachamim it means sages, not just any great rabbi, but the sages of the Mishnah, which had the authority to make decrees binding on all the Jewish people, forbid us to do something which is okay, meaning the Torah would allow it. There's nothing in the Torah that says you can't do that, because it might lead to an aveira, a sin. This is called making a fence for the Torah. We are now doing mishnayot shabbat, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Gimel, the third Mishnah in chapter 1. Now that we know that there are certain things which, even though the Torah would not forbid it, the rabbis forbid it so we don't come to make a mistake and do a sin. Lo yetzeh hachayat b'machato. A tailor, a chayat, should not go out on Erev Shabbat, before the sun sets, with his sewing needle, tucked into his clothing. Since that is considered carrying, he might forget on Shabbat and walk out from a private house to the street and do an aveira. And the same thing, V'lo halavlar b'kol moso, the lavlar, which is a scribe, a sofer, should not go out with his quill tucked in his ear. Hey, you thought only your teachers did that in the year 2015, where we are right now, right? Well, way back in the Mishnah times, that was apparently the cool style. Anyway, samuch lechashecha, close to dark, meaning when the sun is about to set. Why not? Shema yishkach, maybe he will forget, v'yetzeh, and go out and carry. So even though it's not technically forbidden for a Jew to walk around on Friday afternoon with a needle or a feather, the Torah doesn't say you can't do that. The Chachamim realized that we should forbid them to do this so that they should not come to forget and carry on Shabbat. By the way, it's a good practice before we go out, if there's no Eruv, to check our pockets for any muktzah items or any items that we have that we might carry so that we don't come to make the mistake. The Mishnah continues, V'lo yifaleh et kelav. A person should not delouse his clothing. Now, hopefully none of you guys really know what that means, but basically, in a place where there was a lot of lice, and he had lice on his clothing, and he needed to get rid of them because they were annoying him and biting him, so people would take a garment and inspect it for the bugs and flick them off or get them off. Now, you shouldn't do that, or velo yikra, you shouldn't read a book, le'or haner, directly next to a candle. Why not? It's explained in the commentaries that he might come to tilt, shema yateh haner. Maybe he's going to tilt the candle. And if he tilts the candle, he's going to be doing an aveira of lighting a fire, because if you have a fire and you add more oil, more fuel on the fire, by tilting the candle, you get more oil to flow to the flame and burn better. That's like helping light a fire on Shabbat, which you're not allowed to do. So therefore, our rabbis decreed, even though the Torah doesn't say you can't read by a candlelight, but they said don't read close to the candle, or don't do some activity like concentrating to find little bugs on clothing, because that might lead him to tilt the candle and do an aveira. Be'emet amru, in truth it's been said, our rabbis have said, hachazan ro'eh hechan tinokot korim. The chazan, in this case we're talking about the teacher, can watch where the students are reading. Avalhu lo yikra, but he may not read with them. Now what's going on over here? It's explained the following, that if a teacher is teaching students and they're reading from a Torah or from another book, he can look over their shoulders and see if they're reading by a candlelight, that's okay. Why? Because they will not touch the candle. They're respecting their teacher. Just like you guys are very respectful of your teacher, so too, these students over here, in the days of the Mishnah, are very respectful of their teacher, and they would never go and touch the teacher's candle in the middle of class, of course. But the teacher, on the other hand, we got to worry about him because he may forget that he's reading with students because he doesn't have any worries about adjusting the candle during class with his students, because the teacher might forget and he might be reading and see that there's not enough light, and the teacher might go and adjust the flame, and his students won't be there to remind him because he doesn't necessarily have any fear or respect for his students that would prevent him from doing that. So that is the reason for this decree. Ve'elu min halachot. And these are the laws. This is now Mishnah Daled, the fourth Mishnah. The laws that we discussed in Mishnah Gimel, that you can't go out with a needle close to dark or a feather in your ear or read by the light of the candle, are some of the laws she'amru that were said by Aliyat in the attic of Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Gurion. Of Hananiah, the son of Chizkiah, the son of Gurion. Why is he famous? A great sage of the Mishnah. What happened? Kisha'alu livakro, when all the chachamim, all the sages went up to this attic to visit him. Nimnu, they took a vote for determining how many people were on a side of a certain opinion. The way it was done, the Chachamim wouldn't just have one person decide, okay, the halacha, the law is like this. They would take a vote, and those who were voting, they would go with the majority opinion. Now, what is the story? Virabu Beit Shammai Beit Hillel, the school of Shammai, who outruled the school of Beit Hillel, Ushmona Asar Dvarim Gazru Bo Bayom, and they decreed 18 decrees on that day. Now, the commentaries explain what was the background going on over here. The background was that, although it's not necessarily necessary in our study of mishnayot Shabbat, it's just very interesting, so I'll explain it to you. Basically, there was a story that there was a holy book, the book of Yechezkel. Now, you guys understand that we have in our days what's called Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The Torah, which is the 5 books of the Torah, Nevi'im, the prophets, and Ketuvim, and the writings. And we take it for granted that this book is holy, and this book has always been holy. However, where did this book come from? So in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem taught Moshe the text of the Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down word for word. After Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, Hashem spoke to other Nevi'im and told them. Now, it was pretty well accepted that all of the Bnei Yisrael heard Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to Hashem at Har Sinai, as is recorded in the Chumash. So everyone accepted everything that Moshe wrote as Torah Misinai, teachings of Hashem from Har Sinai. And also, when the other Nevi'im spoke, and the Bnei Yisrael knew these Nevi'im to be accepted Nevi'im that spoke to Hashem, it was obvious that their writings were holy. But sometimes there came writings of great people that the Jews were not necessarily sure. How could they know if certain great leaders spoke to Hashem, or if their words were holy? And so what would happen is that our Chachamim, our great sages, had the task of closing the Tanakh, of deciding which Svarim to include in the Tanakh. And there was a situation that there was one of the Sfarim that were written by a great prophet, Yecheskel, and Yecheskel wrote a sefer, and the Chachamim, when they were reading it, they said, oh my, this doesn't sound like it could be holy, because some things in there sounded like it contradicted the Torah. For example, it said, Kol nevela or treifa, any dead animal or animal that was died through an attack from another animal, min ha'of, from birds, or min ha'behema, or from domestic animals, lo yochlu ha'kohanim, kohanim should not eat it. Our chachamim were shocked when they read this. Wait a minute. Any Jew is not allowed to eat not kosher animals that were not shechted properly, not only kohanim, and they had suspicions, some of the rabbis had suspicions, maybe Yecheskel didn't write a holy book, maybe just stuff that he made up. Chas v'shalom, we know that's not true, Yecheskel was a Navi, but some things in the book of Yecheskel seem to contradict things in the Torah. So they were about to do something called Genizah. They were about to bury the book of Yecheskel and say, sorry, this book is not part of the Tanakh. But along came a rabbi, his name was Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Gurion. And Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Gurion said, no. My colleagues, you are all mistaken. Everything it says in Yecheskel is holy, it's from Hashem, and it deserves to be in the Tanakh. What happened was that you just don't understand what he wrote. You need to understand what he wrote better. So they said, okay, can you go and write a commentary on Yecheskel to explain to us what he meant so that we understand his words are holy? He said, yes, give me some time. And so he went up into an attic and he sat down, I guess, with a quill and some paper of those days, and he started to write a commentary on the Sefer, the book of Yecheskel, to explain all the contradictions that the rabbis of his days had. And when he finished, they all realized the book of Yecheskel was holy, and they included it in Tanakh. So meanwhile, all the Chachamim, they went up, and they had a visit, and once they had a visit, our rabbis don't go and speak about the sports scores or what's the latest politics. They started talking about Torah, and they got into a discussion of Torah, and they started to make different halachot and have votes on different Torah laws, and they ended up giving us 18 new halachot. So, what's the lesson for us? Maybe that we shouldn't judge so quickly. We should let people explain themselves, or let someone else try to figure out someone's intention, so we don't right away rush to conclude that someone is mistaken. Also, maybe it's a good idea to talk Torah when we get together, and that's a good productive way to spend our time.